If you're drawn to the darkest corners of real crime, hit subscribe, leave a comment you won't forget, and brace yourself. Because once this story starts, there's no turning back. The night the sirens didn't stop, the sirens cut through the cold New South Wales night like a warning no one could ignore. They echoed across empty highways, bounced off eucalyptus trees, and followed a single unmarked police convoy racing north toward Goulburn. Headlights tore through the darkness, tires screaming as the vehicles pushed past the speed limit. Inside one of those cars sat a man who hadn't spoken in 3 hours, his wrists locked in steel, his eyes fixed forward as if he were already staring at a wall no one else could see. This wasn't a transfer. It was an extraction. Less than 6 hours earlier, a body had been discovered inside a high-security holding facility outside Sydney. The victim was a corrections officer. The scene didn't make sense. No forced entry, no alarms, no witnesses willing to speak. And yet, written in shaky black marker on the concrete wall beside the body were 3 words that sent a chill through everyone who read them. Silence is punishment. By midnight, every senior law enforcement official in the state knew what those words meant. They'd seen them once before, years earlier, scrawled at another crime scene tied to a man the system had failed to contain. His name was Marcus Vale. Vale wasn't famous to the public, but within police intelligence units, his file was legendary. Former enforcer for an international crime syndicate, suspected mastermind behind multiple contract killings, and the only inmate ever linked to coordinating violent acts from inside maximum security detention. He was patient, calculated, and terrifyingly quiet. And now, he was being moved to the one place designed for men the system feared losing control of, Goulburn Supermax. As the convoy neared the prison, floodlights snapped on across the horizon, illuminating concrete walls rising from the darkness like a fortress. The facility didn't look like a prison. It looked like a military installation, low, angular, and unforgiving. Cameras tracked every movement, automated barriers locking and unlocking with mechanical precision. Inside the lead vehicle, Detective Inspector Sarah Caldwell stared at the gates as they opened. She had spent 20 years chasing criminals across Australia, but this place still unsettled her. Goulburn Supermax wasn't built for rehabilitation. It was built for containment. Absolute, unyielding containment. As the convoy rolled through the final checkpoint, Caldwell glanced at the man in the back seat. Marcus Vale finally turned his head. For a brief moment, their eyes met. He smiled. Inside Goulburn Supermax, silence wasn't just enforced. It was engineered. The prison was divided into self-contained units, each designed to isolate inmates from one another completely. Thick concrete walls absorbed sound. Doors opened and closed without human presence. Even the air vents were positioned to prevent communication between cells. Every movement was scheduled, every interaction controlled. Vale was processed without ceremony. No shouting guards, no threats, just a series of commands delivered through speakers, doors sliding open and shut like something out of a science fiction nightmare. Caldwell watched from behind reinforced glass as Vale was escorted to his cell. He didn't resist. He didn't ask questions. He walked with the calm confidence of someone who believed he was still in control. That disturbed her more than anything. Because Goulburn Supermax had a reputation. Inmates who arrived defiant didn't stay that way for long. The isolation broke routines, stripped identities, and dismantled the networks criminals relied on to survive. And yet, Vale looked almost relieved. Later that night, Caldwell stood in the prison's control room, surrounded by monitors showing empty corridors, sealed doors, and motionless cells. The officer's death replayed in her mind. The lack of struggle, the message on the wall, the impossible timing. How could he reach anyone from inside? She asked quietly. The prison governor, a hardened man named Robert Hensley, didn't look away from the screens. That's what scares us, he said. He shouldn't be able to. Over the next few days, Caldwell began digging into Vale's history inside the system. What she found didn't add up. Disciplinary reports showed long stretches of perfect compliance. No incidents, no infractions. But buried between routine entries were unexplained transfers, sealed interviews, and classified notes marked restricted access. It was as if someone had been protecting him. Then came the second incident. A maintenance worker collapsed inside one of the service corridors. Officially, it was ruled a medical emergency. Unofficially, Caldwell saw the autopsy report. The man's heart had stopped under extreme stress. His fingernails were broken, his throat raw, as if he'd been screaming where no one could hear him. Written on a folded piece of paper found in his pocket were the same 3 words: "Silence is punishment." Caldwell felt the case tightening around her like a vice. Goulburn Supermax was designed to eliminate influence, communication, and control, yet something, or someone, was operating beneath its rigid systems. When she requested access to Vale's surveillance footage, she was denied. Security protocol, Hensley told her. Some things are above investigation. That was when Caldwell realized the truth was more dangerous than she'd imagined. This wasn't just about an inmate manipulating the system itself might be compromised. Late one evening, Caldwell received an anonymous message on her encrypted phone. No sender ID, no explanation, just coordinates and a time. Against her better judgment, she went. The location was a decommissioned storage wing beneath the prison, sealed off years earlier. Dust coated the floor. The air smelled stale, untouched. At exactly 11:47 p.m., a hidden door slid open. Inside was a room Caldwell hadn't seen on any blueprint. Old monitors flickered to life, displaying archived footage from years past. Inmates, guards, interrogations that never made it into official records. And at the center of it all, Marcus Vale. Footage showed him speaking calmly to someone off camera, his voice low, deliberate. "You can lock me away," Vale said in the recording. "But prisons run on people. And people break." Caldwell's blood ran cold. The final clip showed Vale being escorted through a corridor that didn't exist on any map. A corridor leading deeper into the prison's core. The video ended abruptly. Behind her, the door began to close. And in the darkness, a voice echoed softly through the room, transmitted through hidden speakers Caldwell hadn't noticed before. "You're closer than anyone has ever been," the voice said. But silence works both ways. Caldwell turned toward the sound, her heart pounding, because she recognized the voice. It belonged to a man who was supposed to be locked alone in a concrete cell, with no contact, no access, and no power. Marcus Vale. And in that moment, as the door sealed shut and the monitors went dark, Caldwell understood something terrifying. Goulburn Supermax wasn't just holding the most dangerous inmates in Australia. It was hiding a truth powerful enough to destroy everyone who uncovered it. But when the hidden basement door finally reopened, what they found inside changed everything. The architecture of control. When the lights came back on, Detective Inspector Sarah Caldwell was no longer alone. The hidden room beneath Goulburn Supermax felt smaller now, its concrete walls pressing inward as if the prison itself were listening. 2 armed tactical officers stood near the door, faces tense, weapons lowered but ready. Behind them was Governor Robert Hensley, his expression unreadable, his presence unsettlingly calm for a man whose prison had just revealed a secret basement that officially did not exist. "You weren't supposed to find this place," Hensley said quietly. Caldwell straightened, refusing to show the surge of adrenaline still racing through her veins. "Then you shouldn't have built it." The monitors behind her flickered once more before going black for good. Whatever system had powered them had been cut remotely. That alone told Caldwell this room wasn't abandoned, it was actively managed. Hensley dismissed the tactical officers with a gesture. The door sealed again, leaving the 2 of them alone in the dim light. "This wing was part of an early experimental phase," Hensley explained. "Long before public oversight. It was designed to study behavioral control under extreme isolation." Caldwell turned toward him slowly. "You mean psychological breaking?" Hensley didn't argue. The government wanted to know how far silence could go, what it stripped away, what it created. And Marcus Vale had been their perfect subject. Back in her temporary office inside the prison, Caldwell reviewed everything she'd uncovered with fresh eyes. Vale's compliance reports, his sudden transfers, the sealed interviews. They weren't signs of reform, they were data points. Evidence of someone being observed, tested, pushed. Yet the most disturbing detail was still unanswered. How was Vale communicating? According to every official record, he had no contact with other inmates. No letters, no visits, no shared airspace. His meals were delivered through sealed slots. His exercise was solitary, in enclosed yards with sky-facing grates designed to prevent even a glimpse of another human being. And yet people were dying. That night, Caldwell requested access to live surveillance of Vale's unit. This time, Hensley didn't stop her. On the monitor, Vale sat cross-legged on the floor of his cell, eyes closed, hands resting on his knees. The cell was spotless. Concrete bed, steel toilet, a narrow slit of reinforced glass angled toward the sky, offering light but no view. He looked peaceful. You see, Hensley said behind her. No tricks, no signals, just silence. Caldwell leaned closer to the screen. Vale's lips moved. Not enough to be obvious. Just barely. She froze. Rewind, she said. The footage rolled back, frame by frame. Vale's mouth moved again, shaping words without sound. He's talking, Caldwell whispered. Not to someone, to something. Hensley frowned. That's impossible. Is it? She replied. What if the silence is the medium? The next incident happened less than 12 hours later. A junior corrections officer named Liam Fraser failed to check in at the end of his shift. His locker was untouched. His vehicle still sat in the staff lot. Security footage showed him entering a restricted corridor near the prison's older infrastructure, areas connected to maintenance tunnels and decommissioned wings. They found him alive, but barely. Fraser was discovered curled against a wall, eyes wide, breathing shallow, repeating the same sentence over and over. He knows my thoughts. Doctors ruled out drugs. No physical injuries, just severe psychological trauma. When Caldwell interviewed him, Fraser flinched at every sound. He spoke to me, Fraser said hoarsely. Not with words. With the walls. With the quiet. I could feel him thinking. Caldwell felt a chill creep up her spine. Vale wasn't communicating through people. He was communicating through routines, patterns, predictability. By observing the prison long enough, he'd learned when guards passed, when lights dimmed, when doors cycled. Tiny variations in sound, pressure, vibration, imperceptible to most, were his language. And certain people were listening without realizing it. Caldwell brought her theory to Hensley, expecting resistance. Instead, she found fear. He's adapting faster than we anticipated, Hensley admitted. That wasn't supposed to happen. What was? Caldwell demanded. Hensley hesitated, then finally spoke. There were others before him. Inmates placed into long-term isolation studies. Most deteriorated. A few broke violently. One committed suicide without ever touching himself. Stopped eating, stopped moving, stopped responding. And Vale listened, Hensley said. He learned. As Caldwell dug deeper, she uncovered something worse. Several senior staff members had been quietly reassigned or forced into early retirement after interacting with Vale too frequently. Their records cited stress, burnout, mental health leave. Unofficially, they'd reported the same thing. Voices in silence. Thoughts that weren't theirs. That night, Caldwell stood outside Vale's cell for the first time. Not inside. Not close. Just outside the reinforced door, separated by layers of steel and concrete. She didn't speak. Neither did he. But slowly, deliberately, Vale turned his head toward the door and smiled. You finally understand, he said softly, his voice carrying just enough to reach her ears. Caldwell stepped back, heart pounding. How? She demanded. Vale's smile widened. Isolation removes distractions. Most people fear that. I embraced it. You're manipulating people, Caldwell said. You're killing them. I'm revealing them, Vale replied calmly. The prison shows you who you really are when no one's watching. Before Caldwell could respond, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the corridor. An emergency lockdown slammed into place. Over the intercom, a panicked voice crackled. We've lost control of Unit C. Doors aren't responding. Systems are looping. Caldwell ran toward the control room, Hensley close behind. On the screens, doors opened and closed in erratic patterns. Not randomly, but rhythmically. Like a pulse. Vale sat on his cell floor, eyes closed again, breathing steady. He's not escaping, Caldwell said suddenly. Hensley stared at the screens in horror. Then what is he doing? He's proving a point, she replied. That control doesn't come from force. It comes from understanding. The lockdown ended as abruptly as it began. No damage. No injuries. Just a message typed into the system's internal log. Something no inmate should have been able to access. Silence is a system. Systems can be learned. In the days that followed, external investigators were called in. Oversight committees demanded answers. Media pressure mounted as rumors leaked about psychological experiments and hidden wings. But Marcus Vale remained where he was. Untouched. Unmoved. Watching. Then Caldwell received a classified file stamped with a date from 3 years earlier. A case she vaguely remembered, a suspected murder ruled accidental. The victim's name made her stomach drop. Detective Aaron Blake, her former partner. The report claimed Blake had taken his own life after suffering insomnia and paranoia following an internal investigation at Goulburn Supermax. Caldwell stared at the notes he'd left behind, scribbled phrases that now made terrifying sense. The silence isn't empty. He's already inside. Caldwell closed the file, her hands trembling. Vale hadn't started killing after arriving at Goulburn. He'd started long before. And now, she realized, she wasn't just investigating a prison. She was part of the experiment. As she looked up at the surveillance monitor one last time, Vale's eyes opened. And for the first time since his arrival, he spoke directly to her. "You should have stayed away." The cost of absolute silence. The first thing Detective Inspector Sarah Caldwell noticed was how quiet the prison had become. Not the controlled quiet Goulburn Supermax was famous for, the regulated hush enforced by steel doors and routines, but a deeper absence. A vacuum. Even the hum of electricity felt muted, as if the building itself were holding its breath. The external investigators arrived at dawn, escorted through layers of security with grim efficiency. Suits and uniforms mixed uneasily as they reviewed Caldwell's findings, the hidden wing, the experimental files, and the growing body count tied not by weapons or fingerprints, but by proximity to Marcus Vale. "He's not killing anyone directly," one investigator said, flipping through reports. "There's no legal basis to hold him responsible." Caldwell didn't look up. "You're still thinking in terms of hands and knives." The truth was darker than any courtroom would accept. Vale had learned to weaponize isolation, not as punishment, but as influence. The prison stripped people down to patterns, and Vale had memorized them all. Governor Hensley sat apart from the group, his authority eroded by revelations he could no longer control. "We created a place designed to remove unpredictability," he said quietly. "But we never considered what happens when someone masters it." That someone was watching them now. Vale's self-feed played silently on a monitor. He stood at the window slit, face tilted upward, light tracing sharp angles across his features. Calm, patient, waiting. Caldwell requested one final interview. It took hours to clear approvals. By the time she stood outside Vale's cell again, night had fallen. The corridor lights cast long shadows across the floor, stretching like fingers toward the door. The guard unlocked the outer barrier and stepped back. 5 minutes, he said, uneasy. Caldwell entered the observation space, separated from Vale by reinforced glass. No intercom, no microphones, just proximity. Vale turned slowly. "You came back," he said, voice steady. "I came for answers," Caldwell replied. "About Blake. About the others." Vale regarded her with something close to curiosity. They were already fractured. The silence only revealed the cracks. "You fed those cracks," she shot back. "You pushed them." "I listened," Vale corrected. "People speak loudly when they think no one can hear them." Caldwell felt anger surge. "You're not some enlightened observer. You're exploiting a system designed to break people." Vale stepped closer to the glass. "So are you." The words landed harder than she expected. "You came here to expose corruption," he continued, "to stop abuse. But you stayed because you needed to know if the mind could survive this place. Because part of you wonders what would happen if you were locked inside with nothing but your thoughts." Caldwell clenched her jaw. "You don't know me." Vale smiled faintly. "I know patterns." Before she could respond, the lights flickered, then went out. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, but the momentary darkness was enough. Doors slammed shut across the wing. Alarms wailed, echoing through concrete corridors like distant screams. "Lockdown breach," a voice shouted over the intercom. "System override in progress." Caldwell backed away from the glass. "What did you do?" Vale didn't answer. Instead, he sat down, cross-legged, eyes closing as if in meditation. Across the prison, routines unraveled. Automated doors cycled open and shut. Lights pulsed. Intercoms crackled with fragments of recorded announcements, spliced and replayed out of sequence. It wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Engineers scrambled in the control room, hands flying over keyboards. "We're being looped internally," one shouted. "No external access." "It's like the system is arguing with itself." Hensley watched in disbelief. "He's not hacking," he whispered. "He's anticipating." Vale had studied the prison long enough to predict how it would respond under stress. He didn't need control, just timing. Caldwell realized the truth too late. "He's not trying to escape," she said. "He's forcing a choice. Either shut the prison down completely, exposing everything hidden within its walls, or restore order by reasserting human control, which meant entering the silence. A volunteer was needed. Someone to step into the decommissioned wing and manually reset the core junction, an area untouched for years, steeped in the kind of isolation Vale had mastered. Hensley looked at Caldwell. "You know the layout. You understand what's at stake." She nodded once. The descent into the old wing felt like moving backward through time. The air grew colder, the lights dimmer, the walls closer. Every footstep echoed too loudly, then vanished. As she approached the junction room, Caldwell felt it, that creeping sense of being observed, not by cameras or guards, but by absence itself. She forced herself forward. Inside, the control panel hummed softly. Analog switches, manual overrides. Simple, brutal. As she worked, a voice drifted through the corridor. Not echoing, not amplified, just present. "You made it farther than the others," Vale said. Caldwell froze. "You're not here." "Neither are they," Vale replied calmly. "But they're still with you." She closed her eyes briefly, steadying her breath. "You wanted this," she said. "To prove something." "Yes," Vale agreed. "That extreme isolation doesn't destroy the mind. It reveals what was already there." "And what does it reveal in you?" Caldwell asked. A pause. "Clarity," Vale said. "Purpose." Caldwell flipped the final switch. The systems rebooted with a deep, resonant hum. Lights stabilized. Doors locked into place. The alarms fell silent. When Caldwell emerged, exhausted but steady, the prison felt ordinary again. Too ordinary. Vale was returned to his cell. The investigators compiled their final reports. The hidden wing was sealed permanently. Hensley resigned within days. Officially, the deaths were ruled stress-related incidents. Procedural failures. No single party held accountable. Unofficially, Goulburn Supermax became quieter than ever. Weeks later, Caldwell prepared to leave. Her assignment was over. The case closed, as far as the system was concerned. Before she went, she requested one last look at the surveillance feed. Vale sat alone, as always. Still, silent. Then, without warning, he looked directly into the camera and nodded. 3 months later, an internal memo circulated quietly through correctional departments across Australia. Several officers at unrelated facilities had reported identical symptoms: insomnia, paranoia, intrusive thoughts, after extended solitary shifts. One report included a phrase scribbled in the margin: "The silence isn't empty." Caldwell folded the memo and stared out the window, the weight of it settling in her chest. Vale was still locked away, but the system he'd learned had been replicated everywhere. Because silence, once understood, never stays contained. And if you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes after the silence.